In watches, two words matter most: heritage and authenticity. This isn't just a watch, it's a gateway drug. But there are lawsuits and scandals here that nobody talks about. It's the only private timepiece that's been to the moon. Its story is wilder than people realize, and Bulova is missing one critical thing. Let's imagine a mechanical Moonwatch alternative, affordable and authentic. This is Pilot Watch Gouge. Apollo 15 wasn't just about flags and footprints. It was the first mission where astronauts became field geologists on the moon. For the first time, astronauts had wheels. The lunar rover turned this mission into a road trip. This is the story of the Bulova Lunar Pilot. Let's take a closer look at the only privately owned watch ever worn on the moon. A prototype, designed to fly in space, that sparked a lawsuit, sold for $1.6 million at auction, and inspired a reissue that looks the part, but lost its soul. Watch nerds all know the Omega Speedmaster. Watch nerds all love the Omega Speedmaster. But as I started getting into watches, I knew I wasn't going to start with a watch that costs about as much as 3 months at my kid's university. I wanted to wear an analog watch again, something I could wear on the flight deck, something that could hold its own even if whomever I was flying with was a watch nerd. So despite the influence of my Speedmaster-obsessed friends, I opted for something more affordable, but with a great story, the Lunar Pilot by Bulova. I chose the reissue, reference number 96B251, which was marketed as the Bulova Moonwatch from 2015 on a bracelet. And despite being quartz, it is well received by watch enthusiasts for its spaceflight heritage, design fidelity, and accessible price of around $550 at retail. It sold strongly, especially compared to other bulky quartz chronographs at the time, and laid the foundation for later variations in different case sizes, finishes, and straps. To me, it was a nice style upgrade to my Apple Watch. It quickly became my go-to watch when I put on the uniform. I occasionally swap between the bracelet and a hyper-accurate replica watch strap. Luna Replicas makes these NASA spec, the same style astronauts wore on Apollo. Mil-spec Velcro, brand fastener, and OD green gross grain tape. Includes authentic serial and part number markings. Put one on a Lunar Pilot, and it gives more of a flight gear vibe. The Lunar Pilot prototype, reference number 88510/01, was a one-off chronograph that flew to the moon on Apollo 15 in July of 1971. It wasn't part of NASA's issued equipment. Astronaut Dave Scott brought it along as a personal backup after his government-issued Omega Speedmaster lost its crystal during his second EVA. That watch was a 43mm stainless steel chronograph powered by a Valjoux 72 movement, the same caliber found in early Rolex Daytonas. Its design was more conventional than the later reeditions: black dial, subdials, and asymmetrical case with chunky pushers. The pushers are one of my favorite details. Unlike the Speedmaster, which wasn't intended for spaceflight, it was designed for the track as a racing watch. The Lunar Pilot was explicitly designed for going to the moon. Those broad pushers on the side of the case, which run and reset the chronograph, are intentionally designed to be easy to use while wearing pressurized gloves in a vacuum. I kind of love that. Inside, Dave Scott's American-made prototype beat the legendary Swiss Valjoux 72, a movement introduced in 1938 and famous for powering the early Rolex Daytonas. It ran at just 18,000 beats per hour, its chronograph controlled by a silky column wheel. Collectors call it the AK-47 of chronographs, rugged, reliable, and everywhere in the mid-20th century. Variations even added calendars and moon phases, but at its core, the 72 was pure mechanical sexiness: gears, levers, and springs. My Lunar Pilot has a 45mm diameter stainless steel case that is about 13.5mm thick, measuring about 54mm lug to lug. It's got a bead-blasted finish, a flat anti-reflective sapphire crystal, a solid screw-down case back engraved with Apollo 15 mission details, and the iconic Bulova tuning fork symbol. I like the high legibility here. Black dial with white accents, super luminova on hands and markers, and distinct subdials. The tachymeter scale on the bezel is a silly complication to put on a pilot's watch, but it's understandable why Bulova chose to do this. They wanted to offer a watch that could be an easy swap for the Speedmaster. This watch is large and striking on the wrist. It's been called chunky but manageable, but so have I. Bulova has updated what has now become a line of watches. In 2023, it was downsized, finally bringing the Lunar Pilot to a more wearable for some, and more importantly, more historically accurate 43.5 millimeters. With new colorways like the Blue Panda, in 2024, there was a meteorite dial titanium limited edition, and now in 2025, a wild Damascus steel dial version. Bulova's NP20 high-performance quartz movement has been common across all these releases. It's extremely accurate, within a few seconds per year. It's impressive to see a movement with the same frequency as a Breitling Aerospace, but for around $500. But it's that movement that's my biggest hang-up. It's an opportunity that Bulova needs to step up and execute on. But more on that later. This is the part where everyone telling this story says the crystal popped off Dave Scott's issued Speedmaster, and he pulled out the prototype he got from Bulova to save the day. But it's worth clearing up some shade that gets thrown. It's important to understand why the Speedy lost its crystal after EVA-2. Here is the story, in David Scott's own words.
By this time, however, our oxygen supplies were running low. In addition to Houston very carefully monitoring our time away from the LEM, we monitored the depletion of our oxygen by counting down on our wristwatches the period left in our tanks. Fortunately, I had brought 2 wristwatches along. At the end of this second day's EVA, my first one broke. Its crystal popped off after overheating, and the watch became filled with lunar dust. This was because our longer stay on the Moon meant we were being subjected to higher temperatures than previous missions. The sun was rising higher in the lunar day. The higher heat soak to which our equipment was subjected was another new challenge. By the end of our third day, we would have to switch the temperature control in our liquid-cooled garments to a lower setting. But everything worked fine, except for the watch.
But as the saying goes, this is not where the story ends. In fact, it's where it all sort of goes off the rails. Apollo 15 wasn't just about lunar rovers and spacewalks. It came with scandal. The crew secretly smuggled 400 postal covers to the Moon, arranged through a German dealer who promised them a cut of the profits. When NASA found out, there were consequences. The astronauts were reprimanded, none of them ever flew in space again, and the incident cast a shadow over one of the program's most successful missions. Apollo 15 gave us groundbreaking science and a significant scandal at a time when the space program was struggling with popularity. For decades, people were under the assumption that this backup watch was a Waltham timepiece. However, in 2014, after revisiting the question, Dave Scott realized it was actually a Bulova.
Frankly, back in 1996, I just made a mistake. It was a Bulova, not a Waltham. When you asked in 1996, things were a bit hazy after 25 years, and I hadn't fully researched many of the ancillary parts of the mission. However, more things are coming into focus these days as more people are researching Apollo.
In 2015, Scott had considered selling the watch back to Bulova, but then the prototype hit the auction block. Collectors went wild. This was the only privately owned watch ever worn on the Moon. When the gavel fell, it sold for an astonishing $1.6 million. Then in 2024, the Rolex GMT master Edgar Mitchell wore on Apollo 14 went for $2.1 million. And in 2025, the 18-karat gold Omega Speedmaster gifted to Neil Armstrong sold for a record-setting $2.1 million. But those would probably make good videos on their own. What do you think? To their credit, Bulova jumped on the hype around the prototype and finally produced the watch on a crazy fast timetable, taking only about a year to launch their archive series, 46 years after the prototype first flew. But then in 2018, Apollo 15 commander Dave Scott took Bulova to court. He claimed the company was using his name and his moon-flown watch to sell reissues without his permission. Bulova argued they were just sharing history. Scott said they were cashing in on his identity. The fight never made it to trial. It was quietly settled out of court. But the case showed just how valuable an astronaut's story and his watch could be. So would you buy a mechanical lunar pilot if Bulova made one? The Speedy is mechanical heritage made tangible, beautiful magic with gears and springs. The Bulova reissue runs on quartz, humming along at 262 kilohertz. One is the official Moonwatch, the other is the rebel that went anyway. Very punk rock. But instead of celebrating the astronaut who made it legendary, the watchmaker ended up in court with him. That's unfinished business. Make peace with Dave Scott, and Bulova gets more than a reissue. They get redemption. In watches, two words matter most: heritage and authenticity. Omega has both. The Speedmaster is the certified Moonwatch. Bulova has authenticity too. Their prototype really went to the moon. What they lack is heritage. And the only way to claim that is to give back this watch its soul. The idea isn't new. Michael
So,
Benavente,
let me ask a
managing director at
question.
Bulova, talked about it in 2023.
In the future, who knows? Nothing in the works at the moment. But what if we could do that watch with an automatic? I mean, we could do that. I mean,
Joe just had a moment.
I mean,
I would.
I mean, we could do Solita, or we could do
Oh my gosh.
Toyota.
I would free up space in my 7-watch collection for an automatic. That would be nuts.
This idea is on trend. Look at the revival and heritage reissues that have gone mechanical. Brands leaning into nostalgia with mechanical movements, not just vintage looks. Come on, look what Casio is doing with the EFK 100 line. That brand's first ever automatic watches. These models land comfortably under $300, yet carry the heft and charm of mechanical craftsmanship. Think sapphire crystals, exhibition casebacks. A true mechanical lunar pilot chronograph wouldn't compete in the same orbit as Omega's Speedmaster. The Speedies live in a $7,000 to $10,000 luxury tier, backed by NASA qualification and Swiss prestige. A mechanical Bulova Lunar Pilot would play in an entirely different space. Sell them in the much more attainable $1,000 to $2,000 range maybe. Looking at the fantastic watches microbrands have in the market for less, the margins would still be pretty great. Sell a watch to pilots and collectors who want history but can't or won't step into Omega's price bracket. Different audiences, different wallets, different reasons to buy. Launch it like it flew. Velcro strap only, just like on the moon. Keep the bracelet and sapphire caseback both optional. Package it like pilot's gear, no frills, no fluff. That would keep costs low, fidelity to heritage high, and make it feel like equipment, not jewelry. This watch was my gateway drug into watches. I like wearing it. I like talking about it. If you're a watch nerd, please share this video, tag Bulova, and let's make history together. The only privately worn watch on the lunar surface, reborn as the people's Moonwatch. Not issued, but still flown. Bulova, you've got the story, the legacy, and the demand. Now give us the watch. Not a luxury piece with aspirational price tags, but a tool built for pilots, collectors, and space geeks alike. To us, this isn't jewelry, it's gear. It's time Bulova delivers a true Moonwatch alternative. Imagine it. Affordable, authentic, Apollo.
And I'll drop the two of them here, and hopefully they'll hit the ground at the same time. How about that?
This is Pilot Watch Gouge. Thanks for watching.